Welcome. Here's a video with a lot of stuff. How are you? France has just made it to the semifinals of this World Cup, just as I think we all expected would happen. And they even allowed themselves the luxury of missing chances. It was Mbappé. They spent about 3 minutes reviewing a penalty that, in my view, was clear, regardless of what Pavel Fernandez says. I'm showing you this first because some people say it's not a penalty. It's unbelievable, and it's not the first time because Mbappé wins penalties like this at Real Madrid too, and this guy keeps insisting when he provokes them at Real Madrid as well, right? And for what he thinks is staying consistent, he keeps insisting, still going on and on, even with the French national team. Well, beyond the penalty thing, Mbappe is just so confident because he allowed himself the luxury of missing this just to score a trademark goal afterwards. And another one from Dembele and the chance to score a third, then Barcola in a couple of plays. And that's it. France was dominant, although it took them almost until the 60th minute to score the first goal. But well, they're the best team in the tournament, at least the most convincing one. And even though I have my doubts, from our side for Spain, maybe it could be the team. It's already shown it for 2 years in a row, 24 and 25. The only team that could stop these guys because of their style of play, right? And also for being even more solid than France itself, which had already conceded goals, while Spain still hasn't. In any case, well, what do you think? Because if Mbappe, how many goals is he on now? 8, right? With the one he scored today, that's 8, tied with Messi, and just one away from the all-time World Cup goal record. If Mbappe wins this World Cup with 8 goals and his current performance, he could win the Ballon d'Or. What do you think? So we'll have the Ballon d'Or winner at Real Madrid being a player who, despite the goals and everything, has still been debated in one way or another. And you know why I've questioned certain actions. I mean, a certain way of playing from Mbappe, because with the number of goals this guy scores, with how good he is, you really have to be specific. You have to be very precise because anyone could call you crazy, right? Like if he scores 50 goals every year, how can you criticize this guy, right? Well, yes, this year we'll have the Ballon d'Or winner at Real Madrid. There were situations from an attacking point of view where he took up positions that held the team back a bit collectively. The player has been questioned about being more precise and more clinical up front in one way or another. You know for certain that it's something that really leaves me perplexed, right? Having a guy like that who works at Real still leaves me really perplexed, you know? His goal output at Madrid is clear, but the offense doesn't improve. It's unbelievable. Let's see if Mourinho finds what Deschamps did with a player for France. Although it must also be said his 2024 Euros were not good. It wasn't good. I wouldn't say he was dragging his team down, but it wasn't great. And I've questioned some actions, though not even with that penalty. Besides, it wasn't good. Not to the point of saying he was holding his team back, but it wasn't good against Switzerland and so on. But in 2022, he reaches the World Cup final and scores 3 goals, right? And one in the penalty shootout. He's gold, really. This player is amazing. I insist he could win the Ballon d'Or if he reaches the final and wins it with Madrid, a player who has been questioned, because of the penalty thing. Well, here this guy, Pavel Fernandez, says, no, that he actually starts falling before, right? It's just amazing. These kinds of penalties have always been drawn. And they're penalties because there's contact, there's obvious contact. The defender slides in, the forward gets to the ball first, and in the end, it's a penalty, even if he goes down a bit early, because I'll tell you something else. Mbappe wants to draw these penalties. That's obvious. He's very good. He's very fast. He is, and he does it better than anyone. But for those of us who have played football, in these kinds of situations, when you get there just a bit before the defender, it's normal. I mean, your stride changes and your step changes because there's a guy who's about to kick you, damn it. It's easy to jump when you have plenty of time, but it's much harder when you're barely making it, just like the other guy. And many times it's not that you go down on purpose, it's that the momentum of the play itself makes you go to the ground because of the effort you make to give that last touch. This has always been the case. There have been countless penalties like that, and they've all been called unless something unusual happened, right? And it's the player who gets there first, the other one slides in, unless the player does it in an exaggerated way. We've seen that too, but we've seen it and they haven't been called. When that player leaves his leg out, he makes his leg collide with the opponent because he takes up the opponent's space, But for someone here to dare say this isn't a penalty is unbelievable. Why? Because he takes up his space. In the defender's sliding tackle without touching the ball, he takes up all the forward space. Can the forward jump? Sometimes he can, but when he's really stretched, he can't. There's no debate about it. Hey, there are some real fools out there who say this isn't a penalty. Um, because on other occasions we've criticized the coach, he's also moved up, and he's similar to Pavel Fernandez. At least this one says yes, it's a penalty. Even if he's starting to fall a bit early, it's still a penalty. It's more than obvious. By the way, Mbappé has left. He's gone off the field, and we saw a shot of him on the bench with ice on his ankle. I think it happened when he got stepped on. I don't think he's injured based on his expression and how he walked out. Actually, I think he was stepped on before scoring the goal, or if not, he spent much more time on the field without any issues. He's probably putting ice on it because that area was sore, and that's it. So Mbappe will be in the semifinal, and let's see if Spain beats Belgium tomorrow, and we have an amazing semifinal for this World Cup, which would be France versus Spain. Here, the semifinals of the last Euros would also be repeated. Facing a Morocco that, watch out, Morocco's World Cup has been incredible. They have played against Brazil, they have played against the Netherlands, and they have played against France. I mean, it's very trendy now to show the FIFA ranking of all the opponents of the teams that have made it to the quarterfinals. And Morocco is one of those that has had the toughest path. Of course, Brazil, the Netherlands, and France really raised the average, right? So you could say that Morocco has had the toughest time. And also beating a host like Canada, who was the weakest of the three hosts. But Morocco is a host, and they beat them well, 3-0. Morocco is a team to keep in mind. Today, they couldn't get past France. I already knew they weren't going to make it, but come on, they're here to stay. This team is here to stay, right? Semifinals before the World Cup, quarterfinals in this World Cup. They're here to stay, partly due to their influence in FIFA. Pay attention to what the Objective is publishing today, which says that Morocco is securing the votes to host the 2030 World Cup final thanks to Trump, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. Rabat boasts about Afghanistan. Saudi Arabia, Rabat boasts of having achieved majority support for the Casablanca final and of controlling 22 out of the 36 or 37 votes. I didn't know that for the final there had to be a vote. I thought the president of FIFA decided that. And the president of FIFA is behaving in a very strange way. Now we have para versus bueno. Ahora contamos lo de Quamsa, about the English footballer who hasn't had his red card removed. They didn't do it like they did with Balogun, and he's an English footballer. The one who hasn't had his red card removed, they did it like Balogun, and it's obvious, come on, it's obvious from a mile away what's happening in this World Cup. It's gotten to the point that they're going after Infantino. Now, we'll tell you what the European Parliament has done, and they're tightening the net a bit around a very, very suspicious guy. What do you think? Many of you who aren't Spanish, maybe you don't care about this, but well, the people who watch me from Spain, if they give the final to Morocco, the 2030 final, which is a World Cup, we have to remember. Next, it's a World Cup that France starts to organize with Portugal, accepting that Spain takes the leading role in that World Cup. There will be slightly more matches in Spain than in Portugal. That's how it is. Spain and Portugal, we share the Iberian Peninsula, but Spain is larger in size, and well, it was clear there were going to be more venues in Spain. It comes to Spain and invites Ukraine. Well, the organization of that 2030 World Cup invites Ukraine to take part. That was a really strange thing. And then it invites Ukraine because it seems that maybe Ukraine won't be able to participate in that World Cup with a couple of venues or whatever, because the war goes on and so on. And Morocco says, "Here I am. I don't know how that happened, and I don't want to think about it, even though everything might lead me to it." Because of geopolitics, because of the international policy carried out by the Spanish government in recent years. It wasn't a matter of returning favors or things that maybe one day we'll find out about, right? The thing is that Morocco gets involved, and you say, well, that's it. Maybe one of Spain's venues will go to Morocco and one of Portugal's venues will go to Morocco. They'll have 2 or 3 venues. That's it. Like Canada here. Suppose Spain is now the United States and Portugal is Mexico, and Morocco would be Canada, right? But no, Morocco starts to gain strength in FIFA. The United States gets angry with Spain, or rather, Trump gets angry with Pedro Sanchez. Because no, let's not equate countries with, let's not identify presidents with their countries. I mean, Pedro Sanchez is the president of the Spanish government, but he doesn't represent me, just like Trump doesn't represent many Americans, right? But Spain's foreign policy, its international policy, has been terrible in recent years, and it's creating more enemies than friends for us, and very dangerous enemies at that. Well, that's how it is. A lot of people say, no, I'm not interested in politics. What does it matter? But this is what happens, of course. Then, with all these influences and moves and so on, they leave you out of the race. And the final wouldn't be at the Bernabeu or at the Camp Nou, even though it was supposed to be at the Bernabeu in Madrid. And it could be in Casablanca, where they are building that absolutely monstrous stadium with, well, external help from these very important international actors. And since Infantino bootlicks those in power, you can see it from day one. Well, he has everything under control. What should we do if they give the final to Morocco? Should we withdraw from the World Cup? It seems like everything, even venues meant for Spain, is going to Morocco. We plan to do something else here, but they've been chipping away at our position so they can push us out. The final goes to Morocco, and Portugal, you organize it yourselves, or would we just stay there putting up with the humiliation? Tell me. Well, of course, some really big things have happened. Quamsa didn't get his red card taken away. And not only that, they didn't even have to take it away. We're in the same situation here. What happened with Balogun was an abuse of power because Trump called Infantino. Trump, who knows nothing about soccer, sees that and thinks it's unfair. He calls because he believes he can do anything. And here, the corrupt one, in theory, is the other guy. It's Infantino, right? And of course, here nobody believes that Starmer hasn't done his thing, and that in Olise's case, Macron didn't either, right? So, well, Olise still had the yellow card. He hasn't received another yellow card, so he's going to be able to play the semi-final match. As for Quamsa, not only did they not take away his red card, but they also suspended him for the next two matches, meaning this one against Norway and the likely semi-finals, probably against Argentina. This story is just too obvious. They're saying from England, the Telegraph newspaper is reporting that there's a group that thinks so. They don't confirm anything, of course, they're covering themselves, right? That there's a widespread belief that this World Cup has been manipulated in favor of Argentina, of Lionel Messi, and that this has already reached the boiling point after their controversial victory over Egypt. And it lays out, well, the bullet points that those who believe this is happening base their arguments on. The so-called conspiracy theorists. Not Messi in 2019 when he said everything was fixed by CONMEBOL in the Copa America, so they would give it to Brazil, and that he didn't want to participate. About that referee corruption, Messi's exact words back then, Messi wasn't a conspiracy theorist. But if someone else says it about Messi's Argentina precisely years later, then they're already a conspiracy theorist, right? Like we mentioned in one of the latest videos. The video's up there, recalling those words from Messi. Well, if Messi thought that in 2019 people, or at least some people, have every right to think the opposite now in 2026. Well, especially considering the 2022 World Cup as a reference, and this one as well, because of things like, according to Telegraph Football, Messi avoided a red card in the first match for that action that should have been a red card against Algeria. Argentina is the second team with the fewest bookings, and also, this isn't mentioned here, the team that needs to commit the most fouls before getting yellow cards. That all the referees for this France versus Morocco were all Argentine. All five were from the same nationality. The only time this happened in World Cup appointments. In all others, we've seen 3 of one and 2 of another nationality. But all 5 in this match were Argentine. Although, well, he did call the penalty, in favor of France, etc. And nothing happened in that match with Facundo, with this referee Facundo, who did relatively well. No, there wasn't any scandal. And that's another thing. There haven't been any scandals in this World Cup except for off-field issues like Balboon's red card being revoked and some overly harsh red cards. Since the first match between Mexico and South Africa, there haven't been any scandals except maybe in some Argentina matches. And that's what people are basing it on, that the Egypt match was a typical game where everything went one way, all for one team and against the other. And another point they highlight here is the unfair draw in the cup, the path they've set for Argentina. I have to say something here too. I don't complain that much about the path they've ended up with. Because if Portugal had done their job, they would have faced Messi and Argentina in the quarterfinals. If Uruguay had done their job, they would have faced Argentina in the round of 16. This also has to be taken into account. But it was also suspicious when Infantino said in that interview that he was sweating it out for Argentina and then quickly mentioned the neutrals, right? But yes, I mean, he let it slip that he had suffered. Well, all of this is being talked about in such an important newspaper as Telegraph. Therefore, there is an issue here regarding what we were talking about the other day. Infantino and Messi, FIFA and Messi, I'm starting to become more pessimistic now. And before I was optimistic. And I think that Barca won't be sanctioned as long as Messi keeps playing football, as long as Messi is still active, right? Here, the Objective also reports that scandals are cornering FIFA in Brussels, while at the same time they remain inactive in the Barcelona Negreira case. The European Parliament is asking the federations of the 27 states to demand information from FIFA about the Balogun case. Was it obscene for a president to admit that he called the president of FIFA? And as a result, a player's red card was revoked, wasn't it? In Europe, they want to take action on this. And regarding this issue, which is also mentioned here in this publication from The Objective, it's clear that FIFA, no matter how friendly it may be with Real Madrid, no matter how good the relationship is with Florentino Perez and with Real Madrid, I think the other thing would carry more weight. The fact that a sanction against Barca, a relegation for Barca, a shameful punishment for Barca, on a global level, it would also indirectly be something that would harm Messi's image. And the thing is, every day I keep thinking that in that sense, no, what we all believe is fair is not going to happen, at least for now. Let's see what UEFA does, though I doubt they'll act this summer. Also about Barca, sorry this video is long, but I could only post this today, so I'm combining two videos. Today, Barca, no, not today, today is the 8th, right? On the 7th, they launched the Barca Play platform. Careful, we came from Barca TV, then to Barca Studios, everything was going bankrupt, everything was disappearing. And in the meantime, they sold half of the rights, which they valued the full rights package at 400 million and sold half for 200. Remember, in August, 200. And what they did was Orpheus Media buys me half of the half and pays me 100, and Socios.com buys the other half of the half and pays me another 100. Neither of the 100 million payments ever arrived, and yet that was enough for them to register players. Anyway, I don't want to repeat myself. This has already been said. Barca TV, Barca Studios, Barca Vision, Barca 1, and now Barca Play. And now Barca Play. I mean, they keep reinventing this story to value it again to, I don't know what they'll do next, if they'll sell a part or not, or if they've already sold it. I have no idea. But hear this anyway. I mean, it's just a joke now. It's just a joke. Well, that's it for now. Hope everything goes well for you. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to the channel, comment, share, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.